As of today, most of the 2020 candidates, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Andrew Yang, and more, have released their third quarter numbers for how much money they've raised. And I have some major takeaways for who won the third quarter and who lost. Now, just because you raised more money than the next person doesn't necessarily mean that you won, in my eyes, because I'm also taking into account subjective factors of name recognition and how you raised your money, if it's with grassroots donors or big money ones. With that said, Bernie Sanders won, Elizabeth Warren also won. They raised the most money, with Bernie raising the most, breaking records in the 2020 race. And it wasn't particularly close with the rest of the field. And Biden, yeah guys, Biden's in bad shape. You just hate to see it. You hate to see it. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders announced his campaign raised $25.3 million in the third quarter, the most of any 2020 Democratic presidential candidate in a quarter to date. The cash raised in the third quarter comes from 1.4 million donations. The average donation was $18.07. Since his campaign launched in February, Sanders has raised $61.5 million from a total of 3.3 million individual donations. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren raised slightly less money than Sanders in the third quarter, but had a nonetheless significant haul of $24.6 million. The money came from 943,000 donations, according to the campaign. The average contribution was $26. So wow, both are phenomenal numbers, but Bernie's are just really exceptional. Really exceptional. $18 average donation, and the most money of any quarter for anyone. Cue the Politico piece that says he's done, right? Of course, Warren does deserve a lot of credit too. $26 is a great average contribution. And of course, it's under Bernie's famous $27 from 2016, both of them. I mean, Bernie getting it down to $18.07 is crazy. Just goes to show that grassroots fundraising is the way of the future. And if you aren't a grassroots candidate, if you aren't speaking to individual donors and regular people who want to give money to you, it's going to be tough sledding. And speaking of non-grassroots candidates, how did Joe Biden fare? I hinted at it before. Well, despite being the front runner, he was outraised. And not just by Bernie and Warren, who outraised him by a lot, but by no-name small-town mayor Pete Buttigieg. Ouch. Mayor Pete raised the third most amount of money from those who have released it. By the way, Klobuchar is one of the people who hasn't released it, at $19.2 million with an average of $32, down from his $47.42 in his second quarter, meaning he got more smaller donations this quarter. He didn't release the number of donors, though, which is definitely a way to get around the fact that story after story has shown him doing countless big money fundraisers. But in fourth comes Biden. Despite an aggressive fundraising schedule and, at least until recently, frontrunner status, Biden's numbers were anemic. The former vice president's campaign says he raised $15.2 million. Yeesh. So they released an average contribution, $44, I believe, but he didn't release the number of donations, just like Mayor Pete, so very telling. Averages can lie. But this is the front runner here. I mean, the only thing keeping him afloat was the money he was raising from big donors and big pharma fundraisers, all of that. And now he can't even do that. The downfall has begun, my friends. I've said that prematurely before, but it's happening now. Warren has overtaken him in polling leading. Bernie's right on his heels, and it's got to be happening soon. And I hope so, to be honest. By the way, there were other candidates who raised a good amount of money. Still, again, not everyone has released, but a great majority have. Kamala Harris came in fifth with $11.6 million, $34 average contribution. But right on her heels is Andrew Yang with a very strong showing, who came to this race with zero recognition, name recognition, obviously. It's just really impressive. And he did release his donor totals. Nearly 300,000 donors made up that $10 million. And then bringing up the rear, we've got Booker at $6 million, who, if he didn't raise it, he was gonna pretty much drop out, but he got to the total he wanted. Williamson, still hanging around, despite not being in the debates, at $3 million. And Michael Bennet, $2.1 million, who's inexplicably still running, raising money. Who's giving to him? I have no idea. But really, the big takeaway from this is Bernie just, crushing everybody. And Elizabeth Warren doing really well, too. And Biden in fourth with fundraising. Money was supposed to be your bread and butter, buddy. You're supposed to be able to go to those rich people and get that cash from them. When the fundraising, big money donations, those parties go, where does Biden go? What does he got? He's got nothing. He's got no grassroots support. Again, we have to remember that a lot of average people who are being polled are barely paying attention. I talk to my friends and stuff, and they're like, I'm waiting till the field is whittled down, the people who aren't as into politics. Then they're going to make their decision. And I think that's really what's keeping Biden afloat largely. And there is the boomer vote, there is the elderly vote that thinks, they want something safe and cozy and they want someone who can defeat Donald Trump, and that's the perception. But that's not going to be enough to sustain him to the nomination. You have to have grassroots enthusiasm. In 2016, there was a lot of malfeasance going on. It was a different situation. Bernie had all the grassroots enthusiasm, but Hillary Clinton had every advantage on her side. Now it's a little bit different for Joe Biden, and people are recognizing this guy is a weak general election candidate, and that support's going down and down.